go for a walk, go to the gym, take care of yourself, educate yourself, find different hobbies, anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned being indoors because we did see a lot of that in COVID, and that's when you did see a skyrocket of
Absolutely.
mental health problems with a lot of people.
And I don't think that was talked about enough.
Mm.
You know, I think especially for your guys' generation, where you know you were basically. I mean, technically, everybody was. You know, you have to stay inside, and
Right.
whatever else, and the mental damage or the mental health damage that did to people, I don't think the numbers are anywhere close to what the truth is.
You know what I also think is that it's not paid attention of about also the developmental stages that children go through when it's coming to like learning how to speak and doing all those different things that they weren't able to pick up when they were seeing people covered up with masks all the time. So there was many different harms, not even just mentally, but just developmentally.
So it's not even, and one of the things, because you were about 14 at that time. So my son was about 3 going into 4, and the damage that was done to them for not being in school, and it's been reported and like told as a fact that this damage was done to these children because they were not in school, they were not learning in the classroom. I do not agree with public school and a lot of the things they do, of course, but not all of us can afford private school and all of that. The amount of work it takes to get them back on track to where they technically should be educational wise has been extremely difficult. And that's coming from a dad who busts his ass with his son every day, like 2 hours of homework. We're doing everything we can, listening to the teachers. We're doing the best we possibly can, putting in the work, because we had that gap of time where they didn't have the education they needed, so.
Yeah, we're seeing all those repercussions now, and it's insane. I know that since I'm going to be going to college in the fall, my mom was talking to some, people that are, working in the educational realm in colleges, and they're saying that they have now lowered standards at colleges because of the fact that high school students weren't able to get there. Like all of the beginning stages of my high school were in COVID. Now thankfully I was already homeschooled, so there wasn't much of a change, but for those who went from public school to online and having to switch from that, and then also a lot of kids get easily distracted, weren't paying attention, all those types of stuff.
That's any of us that work. Think about if you're trying to do work at home in your home office, how quickly are you distracted? Oh, I got to go do laundry. Oh, the kids are running around, whatever the case may be. So imagine a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old trying to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Now, how can Gen Z help? How can Gen Z help this problem?
How can your guys' generation help this problem?
Yeah.
Well,
as far as, give me a little more on that.
Do you want to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how would they be able to help them their own selves when it comes to the mental health that they're seeing, and even with their own friends?
That they're seeing as far as how their friends are or how they are? Give me a little more here.
Yeah, so both. You could say that's probably a 2-part question. Are you trying to get to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really right now, especially talking about COVID, we're seeing just a complete wave of the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
And so how can Gen Z who want to step out of that, they see there's a problem, they say, you know what, maybe they're Christian, maybe they feel like they have a little bit more direction. How specifically can they help their classmates, help their friends, help?
Positive reassurance, communication. I think something that your generation is lacking is the fact that you won't pick up the phone. I think the fact that everything is through text message, so there's not feelings and emotion through text message.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you from a genuine perspective of a man who's been through a lot in his life, picking up the phone and telling someone you love them just because you want to do it, you don't even understand how much that would do to somebody. Now, obviously, our faith in God is strong. Our faith in our beliefs is strong. We believe in prayer I pray over my coffee. I pray over my child. I pray over my life every single day, and I pray over the ones that I love. So implementing positive surroundings is one of the most important things you can do. And if there's a negative person in your life, remove them.
Yeah.
Remove them.
Now, I mean, what generation are you?
I'm Gen X.
So,
Wait. For those of people who don't know where Gen X falls.
60 to 80s.
What's that?
60s
about,
to 80s.
Yeah. About. I was born in 78, so yes.
Yeah, because my mom's a Gen X. And I mean, you know, just we were discussing
we're
earlier.
We're considered the, like, wild, like, crazy generation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So
we were left alone in the house. You left the house at sunup, and you didn't come back home till sundown, and there were no cell phones.
Yeah.
There were no, you know, when the street lights came on, you came home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's funny because if you guys like go online, there's a bunch of memes about being a Gen X kid, and like they show the playgrounds and they show all this stuff. Like that is legit. That is completely true.
Yeah.
Like the metal slides that were 150 degrees that you were sliding down, burning your butt on the way down. You know?
Yeah, the metal slides.
Yes.
I've seen those before.
Yes.
Well, okay. What's the difference between Gen X and Gen Z? I mean, other than the obvious, like, you know, we have technology.
Mm-hmm. As far as what is the difference?
Yeah, obviously there are people who stand out, but as a culture, you know, we were talking about how maybe they're not so different. So, I mean.
Yes. So for me, I just finished probably like a 2-hour plus conversation with some boomers and the baby boomers. And so they're in their about 70s now. And there was about 20 of them that were at this, you know, public speaking thing that I did, 25 of them. And like we talked about at dinner today, where I explained to you, there's not a big difference. You got to think, let's go back, you know, 20s, 30s, 40s, and so forth. So you had the newspaper back then you had radio, and you had radio, you had TV, you had black and white TV, and then you went to color. Everything is an advancement of some type of technology. All it is a different technology that you guys are using. So Gen X was when we were your age, AOL had just first come out. And there's a meme on there right now, and a lot of parents are joking about it, where they're like, I'm going to put the AOL picture back up, and a lot of people can relate to this. You put the AOL picture up and make your kids wait 5 minutes before they can go online, because that's what we used to have to do. Because there was one phone line in the house, and if someone picked up the phone, it disconnected you from the internet. And mind you, the internet was nothing like what it is today. But as far as what we can do as two generations coming together, is that kind of what you're looking for?
Well, yeah, I mean, really, I was trying to hear that thing about how the technology changes. I mean, even if you look at it like Benjamin Franklin, you could consider him an influencer. Because he ran a newspaper company, and that was the media back then.
Correct.
So, you know, now he's on the $100 bill. He's one of our founding fathers. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's like the same. It's kind of the same thing, but it's different now. And I mean,
I think one of the things that, you know, I've spent a lot of time, you know, getting ready for this conversation with you guys, because I want you to understand that and again, this is all just my perspective, but my perspective is, our generations are not that far away from each other. It's just a different way of life. Just there's things that are different, obviously. We evolve, we adapt, and we adjust to what's around us. Now, you know, people seem, you know, oh, I'm proud because I'm a Gen Xer. Or, I'm proud because I'm a baby boomer. This is what we had. You guys have it easy. I think, for me, with the conversations I get to have with multiple ages, the most important thing is how we can help each other.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you talk about, mental health. Well, one of the things I think, and I just suggested this on one of my videos that I did, is go talk to the older generation. Step out and ask them questions, because the knowledge they have is from life experience. You guys are just starting out. Like, you girls are just starting to begin life. You're a mom of 2. And you're just in your 20s. Everything is going to be brand new to you guys. And there's a lot of people with a lot of information out there that can help you girls to get more knowledge, get better at whatever you're trying to do, whether it's the podcast, whether it's going to college. You know, hey, how was this for you? How was that for you? What was it like, you know, growing up in the 50s and 60s? You know, there's so many little nuggets you can take from other people of the older generation.
Yeah.
And the conversations you can have with them.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, for me, I've always been the kind of person that only hangs out with adults, or usually did. Mainly because I didn't have a lot of friends back then. But you know what? I really do enjoy hanging out with a lot of older people. I'm a docent at a museum, so everybody who's there is all retired. They're just there, just kind of wanting to do something. So I spend my days just talking to them all the time, hearing about their life stories, and it's always so cool. They always have different, pieces of advice, but it's just always fun to hang out with them. They're not boring, guys. I can promise you.
Yeah, and there's a massive misconception of, oh, well, they're old, they don't know anything. Well, everybody I've been around has always been older than me. I was very fortunate to have older gentlemen that I was trained under or worked under that showed me the ropes of whatever that job was that I was doing at the time, whether that was forklift driving, plumbing, janitorial work, working in businesses, whatever it was. But it was always the older guys, and I would go ask questions. I'd walk into the CEO's office, hey, what can I help with? What can I do? If you're willing to do those things, they're willing to give you a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
Because they see that you're inspired, you want to do the work, you want to get better at what you're doing. And it's hard to find that sometimes. I think the other misconception with your guys' generation is that everybody's lazy. And I can tell you from someone who runs nightclubs, restaurants, businesses, and stuff like that, I've had some amazing young men and women work for me from your generation that are not lazy at all. There's always going to be Gen X. I mean, we were considered lazy bums. We were all about music and hanging out, but we all still went to work. We did our jobs, but at the end of the day, we went out and had fun with each other. Something else that was mentioned to me, I sat down with a young man that was 23 the other day, and we had about a 2-hour conversation. And he was going through a lot of mental health stuff, and he was going through a lot of depression. And he said, one of the biggest turns that I made was I put my phone down and I went outside. He said, because what was going on is he'd see like a happy video, and then the algorithm would throw in a negative video. Well, what it's doing is it's all that dopamine you're getting from being online. Well, once you take that dopamine, it's like being an alcoholic or a drug addict. Once you take the drug away, your body starts to shut down and it starts to freak out. Then we go into anxiety, and we have those anxiety issues because this has been pulled away from me. The mental health perspective is a tough one. It is. Obviously, you guys have on your website a link to mental health for people. I think what it has to be is, as you girls are going out there and having conversations in the public, if you hear somebody, hey, I've got a website for you, check this out. Or even better, if you have a contact for them, someone directly or a direct company they can talk to about their mental health. Because you got to think the same thing goes for our veterans, for everyone that's come home from war.
Oh, absolutely.
The PTSD is real, so.
Yeah, it's so true. I had an interesting conversation the other day. I was on Mulholland Drive, just, I like the outlook there. And a guy walks up to my husband and I and, tries to sell us some drugs. And then, my husband goes, no, thanks. And then I said, we're trying to say sober. And the guy went, no, yeah, me too, until I saw this blunt, he just drug pushing us.
Right.
And then I looked at him and I said, well, all things are possible through Christ. And he looked at me and he went, I got mushrooms too.
Yeah. Right.
And then I ended up just saying, call me 5 years ago, man. I'm not interested.
Right.
And he laughed and we left. But I mean, even with a silly interaction like that, I really felt like I planted a seed, even just with that. And then I got away from him. Like you said, you got to cut out, it's true. Yeah. Sometimes if it gets really bad, you got to just walk away, which is hard because there's a lot of people pleasing, a lot of codependency that happens, especially in young people. They're not even aware of it. So speaking of that, and especially with veterans, I mean, what are some ways that we can help veterans? Are you aware of any?
You can just go online and there's different helplines that are out there with mental health.
Like what is
through
it?
the VA.
Yeah.
There's different resources that way. I mean, again, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed with the VA, and I think that's been talked about a little bit over time. But there's a lot of great. There's a Warrior Foundation out there.
Yeah. I should know
Forgive me for going
blank
on it, but
fine. I got it here actually. We've been doing a veteran series in our Turning Point right now because I run a Turning Point, and Yeah, we just discussed it. Wounded Warrior Project.
Yes.
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah. And yeah, mental health.
So yeah, there's many foundations out there. Someone else you can look into is Graham Allen. I mean, you're familiar with him, and Tim Kennedy, in fact, Nine Line Apparel does a lot of veterans work because those guys are military background veterans. So yeah, it's finding the resources out there.
Absolutely, yeah. These resources are extremely powerful, and even just spreading awareness is about them. I mean, what do you think of a statement like "cash is king"? Why do you think like someone would say something like that?
Because that's something that I said.
Yeah.
I use it as a part of the conversation that's going on right now that I'm seeing between the differences of our generation and your generation is everything going digital. I agree with digital, but I also think the problem is what happens if everything shuts down. Yeah. So
like
which is something that does happen all the time, and everybody's carrying their phones now as a wallet. Well, there's been multiple times that I've gone somewhere and they've been like, our systems are down, we can only take cash, and I'm the only one in there that still has cash on him. So the reason I say that is it's always been a joke that cash is king. The interesting thing is I believe it's Google and Apple have more cash on hand in the United States government, if I'm not mistaken. It's something
that's insane,
pretty wild like that. I don't know the exact figures, but it's something that your generation needs to look at too. Is I was basically that conversation was just always having some type of currency on hand because you never know when stuff is going to break down.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so true. That's something that my dad always told me. He's like, always keep like $20 in your pocket, just in case.
Right. You go to, I don't know, the coffee shop and they're like, oh, our systems are down, but if you have cash, we can take cash.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and it's not just currency either. It's like people's, social media is huge. I mean, imagine if social media just went totally out for like a whole week.
People would lose their marbles.
Yeah, exactly.
So, the other part of that I should express as well is the understanding and the value of money. So so my son is 8 and I teach him through cash. Like, hey, this is $1, this is $5. You earn this X amount of dollars for this. By handing him cash in hand, he understands the value of that. If you're just putting a digit into a phone or onto a card, they don't understand the value of that.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thing. 'Cause seeing 9-10-year-olds walking around with debit cards scares the hell out of me. That makes no sense to me.
I see that all the time.
Like there's
I'm a teacher.
There's no concept of what the value of what's on that card.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is sort of almost unrelated, but I guess related as well, is there was this big surge of a bunch of young, like 9, 8, 10-year-old girls, okay, so preteens, going to makeup stores, okay, and just literally buying everything they could. And besides the fact that it's really bad for their skin to be buying that stuff at such a young age, they were literally asking and begging their parents, or they wouldn't even like ask them. They would just tell them, hey, pay this, and it'd be like $900 and stuff like that. And the parents would just sort of bend over backwards and say, okay, sure, I don't want you to get upset.
Well, first off, that falls on the parent.
It does. Yeah. But it's just the fact that they don't care that their parents worked so hard to get this money, and then they don't even care. It's like something like that goes over their head. They don't understand
the value of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because $900 to them is the same as $9.
Because
they're not holding it in their hand. They're not earning it. The fact that any parent would allow their child to walk in somewhere and buy You're out of your mind. My son ain't touching my debit card.
I know, right? It's like they're like Luke 15. It's like they're just creating prodigals. I mean, like what is up with? I mean, yeah, parents need to take a lot of responsibility here. I see kids, like my students, they'll have iPhones and debit cards, and it's like they're just not learning that basic integrity. You had said the thing about the man, the man acrostic. What is the man acrostic? I love that because it was like the definition of what a man should be and what we should be teaching young boys.
Well, it's, being a man, you being noble. You are basically teaching them the ways of being a man, the right way to treat someone else, the way to treat your family, the way to treat your friends. It's a matter of basically learning the fundamentals of being a young man. So, example, teaching my son, something else with something we've got to work on in our society right now, and it's across the board. Sure, we could throw a lot of it on Gen Z, is the lack of respect and the lack of manners. And so if that's not every single person from your generation, but when we were growing up, it was yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, please and thank you. Well, a lot of times now you can't even get eye contact with the younger generation. They won't even look at you,
Which is a sign of contempt, by the way.
Right. And so teaching them the fundamentals of what it takes. So basically, when you have your son and he's at, 4 to 7, 8, 9 years old, you're developing that young man at that time. Whatever you develop in that time is what he's going to turn into as a man, is basically what it's going to come down to. And he's going to either learn responsibility, learn to respect his mother and other females, learn to do chores, do work on the land, whatever it is. My son just finished putting in, we just finished working on the truck. We had to change out a couple parts on my door, and I had him do it with me because I wanted him to learn that, basically teaching young men now and developing them into being great adult men is what it comes down to.
Oh, absolutely. And not to mention, well, first I'll say the man acrostic was motivated, aligned, and noble. And I love those in creating a noble man, because truly you're creating the future leader of a household.
Yes.
I mean,
and if you don't mind, I would love you to read the woman's side. Yes,
I was about to get into that, because women are definitely a part of the problem right now, with our current society. I mean, it's Eve, it's what's Adam's one weakness? It's Eve, Is that he's stupid, or is it that it's one weakness? So being a righteous woman and a woman warrior, you could almost say, is like, let's talk about it. Woman, wise, overcomer, mighty, authentic, and nurturing. I gotta say, like, recently, just from my peers and stuff, I've really seen a drop of wise and choosing to be wise, and authenticity, of course, and then also just nurturing, like more of that, like, oh, whatever, I'm a girl boss, like, I don't need no man, I ain't get that abortion, like, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, so I let me give it to you this way. You girls are doing something outstanding right now, and this has been on my mind for quite a while now. First off, props to both of you, because you are technically in what's considered a man's world, right? The podcast world. The majority of podcasts are male driven, correct? So you two young girls standing out and saying, hey, we've got the guts to do this. This is what, episode 46, I want to say?
Yeah.
The fact that you two have taken it on and said, we're going to do this, and this is going to be something we put out there, I commend you for that, because we need more powerful women like you. I just posted it on Mother's Day, and anybody out there listening to this, you can go to Johnny Ruthless 1440, and every word I said on that, I mean. Because without women, this country doesn't run. I don't care how powerful a CEO is. I don't care how powerful a man thinks he is. If he doesn't have the right women around him, he's going to fail.
Yeah. Of course they would
and that,
target.
you can go back to biblical times with that
one. Oh, absolutely. I probably will. Yeah. But I mean, it's there was a generation a long time ago where the mothers were often replaced with nannies, and they tried to just get the women out. So there's nothing new under the sun. All the women were working. The babies were with the nannies, or they were put into these like educational camps, school. Anyway, so but that's where Jack the Ripper. That's where he came from. That was his generation. Is a society without mothers. And yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same boat with you there. Like, I can't afford private school. What am I supposed to do? So I think it's so important to really be hands-on with our kids, especially the ones that are at public school, and say, look, you build a relationship with them. Be a safe place for them. So when they say, oh, someone to my kid, they're trans, it's confusing me, they're making me use their pronouns, I don't know how to feel about this, Dad, and then you're able to sit there and go, yeah, that's the world we're living in. You're going to be exposed to stuff like that. This is not God's world. This is, I mean.
Well, and that goes back to teaching your children, like, hey, listen, as long as your faith is strong and our belief in God is strong, we can't change whatever they're believing. I have a saying that you can't change the world, but you can change your world.
Yeah.
You can't protect the entire world, but you can protect your world. The reason that is so important is because your world could be 5 people, it could be 5,000 people. Okay, so when you guys go out there and you say, hey, this is my family, it doesn't have to be just blood family. It's the people that you love and care about that are around you. That's what's important. We can only do so much. If we are going in 14 different directions, we're never going to get anywhere. But if you can say at the end of the day, okay, this is my circle of people, and I'm going to work from here, and I'm going to expand out from here, then you're on the right track. But we can't change everybody. And it's not our job to change everybody. It's our job to do the best we can with the people around us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's bring it back to the prodigal son. I mean, he had to go hit his own rock bottom, and he had to repent in order to actually come back into his father's life. And
Right.
and I think it's important that we, establish boundaries with people who, are pushing them, are just pushing them. And it's like, okay, the enemy's got hold of you. Wish that he didn't, but like, God bless. I can't be I can't be in your circle right now.
Right.
And that is probably.
And it's a hard thing to do because we don't want to leave anybody behind. We feel guilty for pulling away from someone, but we can only do so much.
Oh yeah, I mean, think about how many addictions are being fueled because of a social life.
Absolutely.
That is a huge thing in colleges, just from, and they know it, but they're stuck in it, and So
misery loves company.
Yes, exactly.
And it's a lot harder to work on living a positive life than it is to work on a miserable life.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you from someone who's gone through multiple losses in his life and failures and disruptions, it is a lot of work to keep going and drive and keep pushing yourself to, let's use this as an example. Let's say you got to episode 24 and you've had 0 followers. And you go, God, Tara, this ain't working. Like, this ain't working. You go, let's just throw it away. Or you keep pushing because something inside you says, hey, I believe in this. I believe this is going to work. I believe we have a purpose behind this conversation that we're having with people, that we're going to do something good in this world with it,
Oh, absolutely. It's being ruthless, no?
It is.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, that's another thing that I like is, people, they've always, until I explain the definition of the business, they always look at it from a negative connotation. But I got your attention, didn't I? They're like, oh, ruthless, that's mean, that's it. No, we are ruthlessly dedicated to what we love. And if that means pushing hard and being a little firm about things, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
But we're doing it in a loving, compassionate way.
Yeah.
As long as you are not doing harm to the people we love, then we're good.
Now, talking about Gen Z, we've been noticing a lot of people my age. A lot of them have now registered as independent or libertarian or things like that. And they really have found that both sides have not been very friendly to them. They've seen the left and they've seen some of their extreme things, and they've seen the right and they've seen some things they don't like there. So they found really, I guess, partyless almost in a way. But why do you think that Gen Z is sort of gravitating towards the middle at the moment?
Because you guys have a lot more access to information. So you are the first generation to have true full access to just about everything. Now, there's goods and bads that come with that. Because at some point, I will tell you, the internet and social media will have to be regulated. Because if my 8-year-old is watching his fisherman guy and they throw in some horrible video behind it, I want that corrected. Because I've got to sit there and watch every single time. I see everything my son watches. Okay? So I know when they try to slide that video in there, whatever it is. So at some point, we're going to need regulations on the internet and social media. But the reason I talk about that is because you guys have the tool. You have the tool in your hand right here. This is a computer in your hand. It's everything you need for any bit of information that you want to find. The other problem with it is figuring out what is true and what is not true. And
discerning.
Right, discernment. So discernment is a big, big deal. And another problem is you can't take a 10-second clip and run with it. That is what the media is doing. Remember, the media is just paid actors. That's all that is. They're just paid actors. They read a prompt. They tell you what you're supposed to hear. Look at the shutdown. Everything. They all read the same script. So with your generation, they're aware. They're much more aware than other generations have been able to be, which is a good, positive thing because you guys are thinking for yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're not being forced to the left. You're not being forced to the right. So you're sitting in the middle. The only concern is when you're independent, where does that take you? Who do you vote for? Where do you go?
Right.
And again, my company, myself, I'm not big. You look at Ruthless Americans, you go, well, he must be huge into politics. I know my politics, but my politics don't define me.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to set in the middle because I have friends on both sides. I have friends in different communities, and their beliefs are much different than mine, but they're still my friends. I still care for them, and I want them to live the best life. So as an independent-wise, that's tough because you don't really have anybody that you technically can vote for,
Right.
if that's the direction you're looking at.
Now, let's see. I had a question off of that one. So how has Gen Z reacted to your brand? Have you seen a lot of engagement in that?
Gen Z, I think Gen Z is just starting to get familiar with us. The reason being is we used to do a lot of music shows. We used to do gun shows. We used to do rodeos. The shutdown killed us. I lost everything during the shutdown. We talked about that a little bit before we came on. So Gen Z is just starting to learn about our brand, even though we've been around for quite a while. Now, I was very blessed. I got to travel the United States. I did multiple country concerts, music concerts, festivals, all that type of good stuff. Gen Z has been, for the most part, as far as I know, positively responsive. I think another reason for it is you won't find an FJB or a Orange Man on my site. The reason being is that is not what our brand is about. Our brand is about the American people. So for me, it's protecting our children. It's blue-collar workers. It's my law enforcement friends. It's my veteran friends. It's the people that keep this country moving every day. There's a Ruthless Cowgirls line. There's a Ruthless Americans female line. Like, all of it's there. And it's all about empowering the American people.
Yeah. I mean, how can or why should we be ruthless as Americans?
So the way I go into every day is I have to get up and do whatever has to get done, whether that's obviously for my children, for my family, for my loved ones. As Americans, we need to wake up and we need to be a lot more vocal in a positive manner. This whole burning our cities down and burning our campuses down, all that crap, that's got to go. I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and law and order should be here. There should be no, you can just run amok and burn our campuses down, and that's okay. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Burning our cities down, it's not right. So when I say what we need to do is have a ruthless dedication to what we believe in, it's basically what you and I are doing, is putting information out there, being there for each other, supporting each other. Now, if you want to go stand together with 200 people, as I saw with some of the videos, then you stand there respectfully. You don't stand there making fun of the other side and making jokes and whatever else the guys were doing. You're just as bad as them if you do that.
But what do you think is making them do that?
Reaction, because they're upset, they're angry. As far as why they're reacting to the other side in the same manner, is because they're not being shown the right direction. That's part of it, is there's no leadership. I'm assuming that, again, you guys would be more prone to being on campuses than I would, but I'm assuming there's not a leader standing there like, hey, fall back, stand in line, we get together, we hold the line, and we throw out positive things out there instead of yelling, screaming, and throwing things across at each other. You can have a proper discussion without having to get angry and hit someone in the head with a pallet.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Ellie, what were the goals of those from the protesters' perspective?
Okay, so depending on what side you were there, it was very interesting. I mean, I definitely recommend everybody to go watch the last episode because we did talk a lot about that.
That young lady on your podcast was outstanding.
She,
by the way.
yes.
Oh,
Her
yeah,
knowledge was
she
on point.
is amazing.
Yeah, she was smart.
Yes.
I actually knew her way back in November because I had interviewed her for I forget the name of it, but it was when in LA they recreated what happened in October. during the festival.
Okay.
And it was a very interesting day. But she was really knowledgeable and all that. But going back to the campuses, it was very interesting because on both sides you could see some people trying to make sure that they diffuse the situation, but then there's other people who were just there and upset because there were so many emotions going on, and you really can't hold back so many people. But I could definitely tell on both sides there are people who are wanting to pull people aside, especially on the encampment side. There was a lot of people who were saying, okay, don't engage, don't even talk to them, don't even look at them, turn your back. Obviously, not many people did listen to that, but on the Israeli side, I think they were just really upset because what I'm hearing is what started the whole entire aggression from both sides was one of the pro-Palestinian guys had stolen one of the speakers that one of the Israelis had brought to the I guess the protest, and that sort of started a little bit of the fighting. But both sides have their own agenda.
What was the Palestinian side?
The Palestinian side, they wanted to, very interestingly, some of them were talking about how bad this country was. That was for some people, but
didn't they have a demand?
Most of them were demanding for divestment, which is, I guess, taking away money from businesses that the college was like sort of associated with.
Okay.
They were demanding results.
Yes, demanding results. There's a whole entire list of things that they wanted, but I don't know if
and it's fascinating because that's the instant thing. We want things instantly. We
Right.
want our we want
Instant gratification.
Yeah, we want the movie instantly. We want to just get it on Netflix. We want the social life likes instantly. We want instant.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. I mean that's the thing.
And that's another thing too, where your generation, they have never had to wait for anything. Everything is here and now. That is one big difference. Where if we were to order something, our generation or whatever before Amazon, you waited 2-3 weeks for it to come. It wasn't just there
right.
and now.
You had patience.
You had to have patience. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's something that's missing in our society as well, is patience.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, is this a race or is this a marathon?
Right.
And then I really believe that that's where a lot of the hate was coming from, a lot of the anger and,
Sure.
sitting there saying nasty comments. Why? Because they're thinking about here and now and what they want right now. And it's like, how are they going to get it? Well, they're playing bad chess. They're going to scream out and try and bully the other person into it.
Yeah, I'll tell you a good example. A friend of mine, we just had a conversation about, I'm not going to say who he works for, but you decided to go out there and throw something at another person. Now, mind you, you're in college. You're paying tuition. You're now being arrested for this. That's going on your record. So you wanted to be a doctor. You wanted to do these things. Well, when they look this up, they're going to see what you did, and you may or may not get a job because of that. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
And that's the thing. We're all being watched all the time, and that's another thing that makes it
And
difficult.
also talking about that is one of the things that I think my generation hasn't been able to experience as much is consequences
Correct.
of their actions.
Correct.
And everything has a consequence. And if it wasn't directly for you at the moment, some people around you will have to deal with those consequences.
Well, the other thing is especially with everything being on social media, it may not be now, but it'll be 10 years down the road when you're looking for a job, or 5 years down the road, whatever it may be, and they go back through your information and find the things that you did. Well, that's not going to look so great.
Yeah, that's why I always recommend not just to be careful with with
first off,
what
don't
you have.
do it. Let's make that clear.
Just don't do that. Yeah.
Just don't do it. Let's start with that.
But even with them destroying their campuses and everything like that, do they know what's at risk? Can you tell them what's at risk here?
No, everything's at risk. I mean, as a society, we're rolling into this uncontrollable state of chaos, which is the devil's playground, if you really want to think about it. And he's enjoying all of this right now. So you have to find a way to come to peaceful terms between each other and have a peaceful conversation with you, if you want to have that conversation. Again, if it's something you truly believe in and your heart is telling you you need to talk about it and express about it, great. Then you put these two groups together, you sit down, and you have a discussion. That is the only way. This whole destroying our campuses and just anarchy, and thinking that's okay and that's the way to go about it. No, and you're right. There are not enough consequences right now. Your generation has been coddled and has been protected, doesn't have the laws that we had. Like, what is it? You can, in California, you can steal $900 worth of stuff and you walk out the door. You know, the guy up in the office that claims he knew nothing about that runs his state. Well, I knew nothing about that. Well, how did it happen then?
Yeah. Well, how does God enter this conversation?
Oh, man. Well, in simplicity, it's very simple. There's this big circle. It's called Earth. It's God's kingdom.
Allegedly. No.
Yeah. It's God's kingdom.
Yes, amen.
We all have our little kingdoms within. And, you know, unfortunately, the bad guys have their kingdoms too. And we have to create more positive kingdoms than negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, you know, Tara, that's something that's not talked about enough, because it's the media and social media always shows the negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't see, if you really do take the time, like if you go onto my feed, it's sermons, it's messages, it's positive things, all these things that I feed off of. And the amount of positivity that's out there that's not being reported is absolutely amazing to me, because they don't want that positivity out there, because it's the good side.
Yeah.
You know, so we just have to keep doing what we do. And whether that's through conversations like this or on the street where she's just talking to people one-on-one, it's just a matter of piece by piece building it back.
Yeah.
You know, America is rising up from the ashes right now. And I think that's something that people can't take the time to look into the future and say, okay, I see a brighter time coming. I see light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and it's there. I do believe it's there. And we're gonna rise up again. We've overcome so much in this country, and all the negativity and all the evilness that we're seeing right now, I think you will see that turn around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I think it's about time to wrap up.
I do have one more question.
Yes, absolutely.
So I guess you could pick anything you'd like to say, but what is your top advice for Gen Z?
Oh, man. My top advice for Gen Z. Number one, be good to each other. I think if you can take the time to focus your energy on positive rather than negative, and you need to listen to other generations, take what you can from them, use it, and build your kingdom from there.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I had one thing that I wanted to share, since we were talking so much about, you know, Christianity and God and stuff like that. This is the Pocket Constitution. Highly recommend it. This is the George Washington's farewell address. And let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. Whatever may be conceded, the influence of refined education, reason, and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle. So that's finding our North Star, finding God, and continuing to share his message, especially amongst the very troubled Gen Z.
Yeah.
Well, let's wait for Gen A.
Oh, that's my daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, in brief, that's the other thing that we have to look into and maybe down the road discuss, as well as what's going to happen to the next generation. And in quickly, there is a quote from Ronald Reagan that says we are only one generation away.
Yep.
And I think every single generation knows that quote, and it is absolutely true.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. You would just want to say again where you can find your stuff?
Yeah. So just go to ruthlessamericans.com. You'll find all of our stuff on there. Our social media is Ruthless Americans. We're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Our shops are on there as well. So just check it out.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on. We had a great discussion, so thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. We'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.